Thank you to all of you who are attending the session today. This presentation was inspired by, think of it as a number of very random observations throughout our community in recent months. Everything from comments and discussions we've had at our roadshows and our roundtables to recognizing the applications that we have at Litera Microsystems and how they fit into this industry-wide conversation we're having at long last about driving innovation throughout our law firms and how we need right now to improve processes as much as we can. So the insights we're going to share today, we're going to kind of break them down into several categories. One, of course, is to revisit all of the trends and those observations so I can point you to some specific data points and resources. We're going to discuss a term that I absolutely adore, referring to the citizen developer and what precisely is a citizen developer. More importantly, who are they and how can we harness them? Next, I want to make sure you're aware of some of the examples of tools, both new and ones you probably already have installed or available to you. And again, some resources and data points you can use as reference as you begin and embark on, again, this innovation effort we're having throughout our law firms. So what exactly are the community's current challenges? And I think that the acknowledgement that there are manual processes that are very time consuming, very error prone, very cumbersome, the acknowledgement of all of these manual processes is probably the most important trend I've seen recently. We've always had these processes, but we've been, as an organization, as a legal community, it's been fine for us to just go ahead and use those manual processes. But several things have happened that make a manual process no longer accessible. Number one, I was at a firm this week. This is, again, a current trend. I was at a firm this week, and they shared with me that in this last year, within less than the last 12 months, they have hired 80 new people. Because of the business climate and the services they deliver, they have hired 80 new people. Now, imagine trying to onboard 80 new people who immediately need to deliver services, but at the same time, you're having to teach them manual processes that truly make no sense. So the recognition that we need to drive some of those manual processes out is a key challenge, but also to me, it's a really good signal. Next, we have invested so much in great data stewardship, but I seriously believe that we are not leveraging the data that we have to give our firms and our business insights that they can use to further the business, to streamline processes, to improve profits, and to be more productive, basically. We also have a number of aspects of our current whether manual process or data-driven process, we have so many workflows that are not being tracked or analyzed, or there's no metrics supporting them at all. These are workflows that we do. We can look now at the DMS for activity of documents, but we don't really have a sense of how it goes through maybe an approval workflow. So there are a lot of missing workflows within our current technology state. I think also that our content has become more complex, but interestingly, and in an odd parallel or paradox, while the content has gotten more complex, meaning we've got more content and sophisticated language we have to add, at the same time, we've organized it better than ever before. But the problem is, once again, we can't tap it very easily because not everyone knows where it is, and we're not wrapping good automation around it. And then this is the huge challenge I see for all of us, and that is that IT is deeply overburdened. whether it's keeping systems up and running, whether it's trying to deliver that next new desktop or that next new infrastructure that's going to make things easier for all of you. We're just generally as a workforce, IT workforce anyway, we are just tremendously overburdened. By the way, I just have to give a little sidebar to the creation of this slide. Many of you might have seen in one of my prior webinars that I did on PowerPoint that it provides design ideas. And one of the things that was so great about this slide is that design ideas picked that image out of the icon list that is now a part of our Office 365 environment, picked that by having read the title of the slide and the bullets and suggested that would be the one that, you know, it should use. I just thought that was brilliant because I didn't even have to search for it. It was fantastic. It was served up for me. So next. This is the observation portion, and where, as I said, these were a number of facts and factoids from that I was combining and bringing forward then in this webinar, is that when we were at ILTACon 2 short months ago, there were several things that were pretty key and striking. One is that they added an entirely new track simply devoted to the process of legal process innovation and improvement. One entire track focused on innovation alone. That, to me, was, again, just never before in the history of ILTA. We had a whole track of programming devoted to that. We also had 13 sessions that were titled with innovation. And most importantly, we had 48 attendees whose title had the word innovation in it. I did double check the stats to say, hey, you know, what was that number maybe last year? It was less than 10. And so we are truly, as a community and as an organization, we're truly moving forward in this improvement process. And so I need to put this together with a couple of other statistics. And here's where you can see the kind of mashup and why we're talking about this topic today. In our roadshow, we share a statistic, the one on the left, about the fact that by 2025, which isn't that many years away, there will be 75% of our workforce that are millennials. These folks are totally digital natives. They do everything with technology. They plan their lives with technology. And so they don't have any aversion to adopting new technologies or new workflows. They simply want to use technology and leverage it, and it's really kind of ingrained. I love Joy Heath Rush's definition of technology. Technology is essentially whatever you didn't grow up with, and that's kind of the statistic that jumps out at me is 75% millennials, all digital natives. And then I was mashing that up in my head with another statistic that looks maybe a little bit off balance to that, but still 500,000 is the deficit that we will experience by the year 2024, the deficit of developers to the demand of development resources. And this came from Forrester Research, who did this study last year, a little over a year ago, and they've concluded that, again, 500,000 developers we will need in that same time span that will be bringing the millennials into the workforce. So with that, isn't it fascinating how recently, within just a little bit of time ago, it was announced that Microsoft and GitHub, basically Microsoft bought GitHub for something like $9 billion, and I'm certainly paraphrasing that statistic there, but the point is that what is happening is we are, all of us, seeing tools coming out of our number one platform, that being Microsoft, that are all designed to empower the developer, whether that developer is a quote unquote professional developer, meaning their skills, their career, they're focused on developing with development languages and such, or whether, it's interesting to note, It happens to be more along the lines of that citizen developer. And so what is happening is that with a recognition of that deficit of development resources and how our workplace will need them, folks like Betty Blocks, which is a low-code, no-code application development platform, basically has coined this term and defined this term that we are all citizen developers now. Because what we're going to be able to do with some of these platforms and tools is develop things for our business, and we're going to be the professional developer, but in a different slant. A professional developer, meaning we're the lawyer who knows what needs to be streamlined. We're the digital native who knows what process is broken or what process needs improvement. And with capabilities such as these platforms, of which, by the way, Microsoft's Office 365 Power Apps is one, that the rise of the citizen developer is really amongst all of us. And now I want to take a pause for 1 second on this topic. Back when we were all working in, say, WordPerfect or even early versions of Word, we used things such as VBA or Word Basic or Perfect Script in WordPerfect to write macros to automate the generation of common processes, common things that we had to do. And it's almost as if we have this resurgence happening now, but oh, thankfully, with much better tools and much better platforms. So I did bring into the slide deck for you all to capture or just read through the definition of a citizen developer. It's actually a user who's creating a business application that other users are going to benefit from. It's basically something that's very quick to realize value. And again, typically, historically, we would do things with macros and formulas and things in, say, Excel or Access. But of course, now this has extended well beyond those early days of citizen development. Now, where we are is we're moving up to things like Microsoft's Flow or Microsoft's Power Apps or those kinds of tools that let us visually develop applications without code. Now, one of the things that Forrester identified, and I think this is a really key awareness for all of you who work within organizations attempting to streamline processes, to pick out who are the citizen developers that you wish to develop into these roles officially. And so there are 3 profiles. One is a line of business developer, and that I would say leans far more toward the kind of development resource that full-time works for your organization doing nothing but developing applications, whether that's around SharePoint or it's around your DMS or it's around web services or it's around anything that you have as a system that you're connecting to other systems, a line of business developer. A business developer is someone who works part-time at it and might in fact be a lawyer. So for example, they might be working in some kind of class action matter. And as a consequence, there's a much benefit to investing in processes that are very streamlined, since it's a low margin to do a deal such as that. So the business developer is someone whose profession is not development, and in fact, their full-time job is not development, but they're a business user who knows how to leverage these tools and make things happen quickly. Now then, we have also our power users, also not a full-time developer, not full-time devoted to the task. They're more a part-time resource, but they know Excel like the back of their hand. They know Word like the back of their hand. They know Office 365 like the back of their hand. They're essentially those folks who are subject matter experts in an application. Heavens, even in Visio, we can leverage or tap into power users who have those great skills, and we can leverage them for great things. So again, I've given you the resource to this particular paper. I would encourage you to take a read through it by Forrester. It's really a good way to understand and raise the awareness of who these profiles are so we can tap them. Now, while I was doing research for this, and I, again, forgive the dense text here, but I know that we've all seen software as a service or platform as a service. But the thing that I had never known until just, again, recently putting this together is that there is equally another new platform as a service, and that is a high productivity application platform. Once again, this is aligning to low code, no code platforms, development tools that allow you to rapidly bring business solutions to your users. And I feel that the reason why this struck me as I was going through the research for this, why this struck me is that I don't know if any of you at ILTA conference attended any of the innovation sessions. So remember, there was a whole track of innovation sessions. And one of them was a 3-part series on how you can bring innovation into your firm. I would encourage you, please go and grab those recordings. They're very, very interesting and very focused on people, not technology, not development tools, but people. And so it's just a fascinating discussion. So where I'm going with this is that it made me realize that high productivity application platforms, we live in one. We live in Office. It is a high productivity application platform, and we can develop on it. And as a matter of fact, we have a lot of tools that were designed to be low code, no code, and allow people to, frankly, develop solutions really quickly. And yet, one of the things I recognized by listening to these innovation sessions is that all of the innovation requests that they are getting in their development teams, there's not enough time to deliver it. So it's one of the other barriers and obstacles to why we're not realizing innovation is because we don't have folks to innovate around it. Hence, why, again, that mashup of my 2 stats earlier. Number 1, we have an entirely untapped workforce within our organizations. Matching up with what we can anticipate is a shortage of those resources. At the same time, our industry has a charter to be more productive and to be more modern and to be more process driven. Again, this is the reason and the inspiration for sharing all of these insights. Now, what I wanted to point out is that if any of you are Microsoft Office 365 subscribers, whether you've deployed it down to the desktop on the full client or not, if you have an Office 365 tenant in your enterprise, one of the major toolkit examples of low code, no code development is that of Microsoft Office 365 Power Apps. Now, it was released 2 years ago. It has evolved tremendously since then. I am showing you here, and I have a link in the resources to where you can find Power Apps documentation. But it basically lets you know how you can connect to all at the ready APIs. I think the number 1 untapped resource might be either your DMS or your email or any of the APIs that provide data. So you could connect to SQL, you could connect to a web service of data. And with all of these connectors, you can start to deliver some really important insights and in fact, automate it as well. One of the really nice things is that Power Apps and some of these tools, they don't just retrieve data, they can write data too. So as we empower these workflows that are missing with tools such as this, we can actually make the platform more insightful as a result. Now, I hope that this has given you all some insights around the Office platform, and I'll show you the resources to the Office platform in a second. But I also wanted you to know that we at Litera Microsystems have had 3 examples of applications. We have 3 examples of applications that work in this low code, no code profile. DocX Tools has always been a workflow design tool for automation that dealt with taking a document that looks like this or is deformed like this and informs it with styles and proper formatting and transfers it or transforms it into something brand new. Similarly, Innova and Forte, which are our document automation platforms, each of those have a mechanism by which you can build forms, visually build forms, or build connectors to data sources within your organization. And again, these tools don't require any professional programming expertise. All they require is a desire to make a process better. And in addition to that, some orientation around how to use the administrative and design tools that each of them include. So I hope that this was, again, insightful to you, gives you some good ideas, gives you, frankly, some validation that we were doing it right 20 some years ago when we were writing macros in Word Perfect, 18 years ago when we were writing them in Word Basic, 10 years ago when we were doing things in VBA. I think that the charter we now need to have is we need to tap and identify those people who will carry that forward, because we can empower our entire workforce to recognizing opportunities for automation, and then we'll have the staff to actually deliver it. So these are the resources I've mentioned through our session today. I think each of them are great think pieces, and the Power Apps and Flow learning resources are fantastic ways to get onboarded. In fact, the Power Apps resources, most of them are new. And again, it's probably a really good time to take a look at it, because it's moved out of that 2-year development sort of cycle while they get things right. And now it connects to so much more of the Office 365 platform. I just really would want you to know about it and connect it with workflow capabilities that are also a tool within this solution. So I hope that was insightful and inspiring, and gets you all thinking about a few people in your organization that you can tap to maybe learn how to use these tools and/or learn how to do some automation within an Innova or a Forte or a DocX tools. And with that, I think what we're able to do, Steve, is queue up our questions.
Yeah, no, great presentation, Sherry. I'm ready to become a citizen developer. No, fantastic insights as usual. And just a quick reminder to those on the line, if you guys have questions and comments, we have a few already that I'll address now, but we have 6 minutes or so that we'll run through. So let me address the first question here, but we'll definitely take more. Let's see, first one is from Kyle. Sure, he's asking, where are the best places to find your citizen developers?
I would say anyone who is working cross-functionally and is deeply challenged by that. This is where I think a citizen developer has insights that we could learn nowhere else within our organization. I mean, if you think about a traditional development process, what's the first thing you have to do? You have to go and gather requirements. And the problem is that takes time to decode it on both sides, the developer or business analyst gathering them to the business user who's very frustrated because someone should just know how to make this better. And so what is so great is if you have someone who is working cross-functionally, has identified a workflow that is frustrating them, I feel as if that individual might be someone to look at. Additionally, I think if your organization has created innovation practices, such as those that were discussed at ILTACon, I think you can raise this same awareness, Steve, or Kyle, excuse me. You can raise this awareness with them, and now I think they'll have some, they can spy them more quickly. I think you also should read the Betty Block's guide, because they talk very much about where you're going to find them.
Yeah, the Betty Block's guide was definitely on my list of things to check out post-webinar. Let's see, one more question here. Lynn is asking, how can you connect these tools to processes and governance within our firm? I think specifically to manage those processes and drive innovation.
So I do want to put a big asterisk on this one, because frankly, Lynn, the number one way this whole thing can fail. In fact, they even speak about it in that innovation series. The number one way you can fail to the point of stopping, not failing, fast or failing forward, but to stopping, is if you don't put good governance around this. Even traditional development processes need governance. And in this particular situation with a citizen developer, you need it probably even more. And the reason is because these are platforms you're going to support. These are platforms you're going to update. These are platforms that more than one person is going to take advantage of. When Susie on the 32nd floor in word processing wrote her macro, if it broke, it was Susie who was affected. But because this is going to go out to more people within your organization, you just need to have a little bit of governance. So I would say, number one, you need to do that. And so maybe that's a part of your practice innovation. Maybe that's a part of a facet of IT. Because again, you need to have that broker that makes sure that on both sides of this, you've got awareness of what's going on.
No, great answer, Sherry. And that's actually, that wraps it up for questions. So we'll let everyone go 2 minutes early. But again, thank you all for joining us today. And thank you, Sherry, for a great presentation. As a follow-up, I'll be sending out the recording to all the attendees today. You guys feel free to share that abroad, and then we'll look forward to seeing you on a future Litera Desktops webinar. Thanks again, and have a great rest of the day.
Yes, thank you all.